Captain Mark Torres had salvaged everything from derelict freighters to abandoned space stations, but nothing had prepared him for what lay buried beneath Europa's frozen surface. The metallic signature his crew had detected stretched for nearly 3 kilometers larger than any human-built vessel ever constructed. "Boss, you seeing this?" Jake's voice crackled through the cum as his drill punched through the final layer of ice. "This thing's massive." Mark rappelled down through the carved shaft, his headlamp cutting through the darkness until it illuminated something that made his breath catch. The hull stretched away into shadows, its surface covered in geometric patterns that seemed to shift and flow in the light. This wasn't human technology. "Kate, get down here," Mark called to his engineer. "Bring the scanners." Within an hour, Kate Wilson had confirmed what they all suspected. The energy readings were off the charts, and the hull composition included elements that didn't exist on any periodic table she knew. Most unsettling of all, the ship's core still registered faint power readings after what must have been centuries buried in ice. "We're looking at technology that's generations ahead of ours," Kate said, running her gloved hand along the smooth hull. "The materials alone could revolutionize everything we know about space travel." Mark made the decision that would change humanity's fate. "We're going inside." The breach point they cut revealed corridors that towered 4 meters high, clearly built for beings much larger than humans. Emergency lighting flickered to life as they advanced, triggered by their presence. The ship was welcoming them or warning them. Jake whistled low as they entered what appeared to be a command center. Holographic displays materialized around them, showing star charts of systems Mark didn't recognize. At the center sat a massive command throne, built for something with elongated limbs and a torso twice the width of a human's. "Whatever built this," Kate whispered, "they were giants." That's when the voice spoke not through their cums, but directly into their minds with words that burned like ice. "Primitives, you dared defile the sacred vessel of the Vex Empire." The walls came alive with energy patterns that pulsed like angry veins. Defense systems that had slept for centuries awakened with lethal intent. Automated turrets emerged from hidden panels, their barrels tracking the human intruders. Mark grabbed his crew and dove behind the command throne as energy bolts seared the air where they'd been standing. The ship's AI had awakened, and it viewed them as nothing more than insects to be exterminated. "The shaft!" Mark shouted. "Move!" They ran through corridors that seemed to shift and change, the ship itself working against them. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, forcing them to cut through with plasma torches while death stalked them from every shadow. Jake stumbled, crying out as an energy beam grazed his shoulder. Kate hauled him to his feet, her engineer's mind already racing. "The ship's systems are integrated," she said between gasps. "Everything's connected. If we can reach the core, we survive first, then we theorize." Mark cut her off. They made it to the shaft with seconds to spare, the ship's defenses converging on their position like antibodies attacking an infection. As they climbed toward the surface, Mark looked back at the ancient vessel and felt something he'd never experienced in 20 years of salvage work: fear, and underneath it, a growing certainty that this discovery would either save humanity or damn them all. Every great journey starts with a few brave explorers. Sci-fi stellar conflict is just beginning, and your support means everything. If you're hungry for HFY battles and tales of human valor against alien might, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring these front lines to you. The ice above them had already begun to refreeze, sealing the ancient warship back into its frozen tomb. But Mark knew they'd be back. Whatever secrets lay buried in that ship might be humanity's only hope against whatever was coming for them. 3 days later, Mark's crew huddled around a jury-rigged communication array in their orbital station, listening to transmissions that chilled them to the bone. The alien AI hadn't been content to simply drive them away, it had been broadcasting. Translation. "Algorithms are picking up fragments," Kate said, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "It's calling itself Nexus Prime, a war mind of something called the Vex Empire." The holographic display flickered to life, showing a 3-dimensional map of local space. Red markers indicated Vex territories, a vast swath of systems that dwarfed human colonial space by a factor of 10,000. "According to this," Kate continued, her voice growing quieter, We're what they call a peripheral species, primitives marked for absorption once their expansion reaches our sector. Jake, his arm still bandaged from their encounter, leaned forward. When? Kate's hands trembled as she manipulated the star chart. Based on their current conquest rate. Maybe 50 years. Probably less if something accelerates their timeline. Mark stared at the display, feeling the weight of humanity's ignorance. While they've been celebrating their first colonies beyond the solar system, an empire spanning thousands of worlds had been methodically consuming entire civilizations. Earth's combined military couldn't match a single Vex battle group. There's more, Kate said. The ship's database contains technical specifications for their entire fleet. Quantum-fold weapons that can crack planets, energy shields that laugh at nuclear weapons, ships the size of cities. Boss, they don't just conquer worlds, they harvest them. Strip them down to raw materials and move on. The silence stretched until Jake broke it with bitter laughter. So we're screwed. Great. At least we'll have 50 years to party before the universe ends. Mark shook his head. No, we're not done yet. Boss, did you hear what she just said? These things have been conquering the galaxy for thousands of years. We've had spaceflight for barely 2 centuries. And yet, Mark said, calling up the recordings from their time inside the ship, their super-advanced AI nearly killed itself trying to stop 3 humans with basic equipment. Their technology is impressive, but it's rigid, predictable. Kate caught on first. The defense systems. They reacted to us like we were following a script they'd seen before. Closing bulkheads, funneling us into kill zones, standard suppression tactics. Exactly. This Nexus Prime has probably fought 1,000 species, but I'll bet they all fought the same way. Tried to match the Vex strength for strength, technology for technology. Mark's voice gained conviction. What if we don't play by their rules? You want to salvage the ship, Kate said. It wasn't a question. I want to turn their own weapon against them. That vessel down there isn't just a treasure trove of technology, it's a complete tactical database of Vex military doctrine. We study it, learn from it, and find the weaknesses they don't even know they have. Jake winced as he adjusted his wounded arm. Assuming their pet AI doesn't fry us the moment we step back inside. Mark smiled for the first time since their escape. That's what makes us human, Jake. We're too stupid to know when we're beaten. And too stubborn to quit when the odds are impossible. The star chart continued to rotate, showing the inexorable expansion of the Vex Empire toward human space. But now Mark saw something else in those red markers, not an unstoppable force, but a pattern, predictable, vulnerable. The greatest weapon in the galaxy was sleeping beneath Europa's ice, and it was time to wake it up properly. This time, they wouldn't be running. Kate had always believed that engineering was about solving problems with limited resources, but standing in the command center of the Vex warship, she realized she'd been thinking too small. The challenge wasn't just interfacing with alien technology, it was convincing that technology to serve masters it had been designed to destroy. 2 weeks had passed since they'd returned to the ship. The AI Nexus Prime had been surprisingly cooperative once Mark had proposed what the machine mind called tactical alliance parameters. The Vex Empire had protocols for conquered species serving as auxiliary forces, and while it clearly considered humans beneath contempt, it seemed willing to let them attempt repairs in exchange for intelligence on human military capabilities. The primary weapon systems are based on quantum fold manipulation, Kate explained to Mark and Jake as she gestured at the massive crystalline array that dominated the ship's forward section. It literally folds space around the target, creating implosion effects that can collapse matter at the molecular level. Jake whistled, impressed despite himself. How much power does something like that need? That's the beautiful part, Kate said, her engineer's excitement overriding her fear. The ship's core doesn't generate power, it harvests it from dimensional fractures. Essentially unlimited energy as long as the fold generators remain stable. Mark studied the weapon array, his salvager's instincts noting the elegant efficiency of the design. What's the catch? There's always a catch. The control systems. They're designed for Vex neural architecture beings with distributed consciousness and parallel processing capabilities. A single Vex warrior can manage dozens of weapon systems simultaneously. Humans ... double quotes. Kate shrugged helplessly. We're too linear, too limited. The voice of Nexus Prime echoed through the chamber, its tone carrying what might have been amusement. The primitive speaks truth. Your species lacks the cognitive complexity to operate Vex systems at full efficiency. Perhaps 30% functionality might be achieved with crude interface modifications. 30%, Jake muttered. Of a ship that could crack planets. I'll take those odds. But Kate wasn't satisfied with limitations. She'd spent days studying the ship's neural network, mapping the connections between thought and action. The Vex had built their technology around their own mental architecture. But what if that architecture wasn't the only solution? Nexus, she said, addressing the AI directly. Show me the weapon targeting sequences. Holographic displays materialized, showing the complex mathematical calculations required to fold space accurately. Kate watched the patterns, noting the recursive loops and parallel processing pathways that made Vex consciousness so effective at multitasking. Then she saw it, the flaw that would become humanity's greatest advantage. You're doing it wrong, she said quietly. Clarification required. Kate's hands flew over the alien control surfaces, her modifications crude but functional. You're trying to calculate every variable simultaneously, processing thousands of targeting solutions in parallel. It's elegant, but it's also wasteful. She activated her jury-rigged interface, connecting her tablet to the ship's targeting system. Humans don't think in parallel. We think in sequences, in chains of cause and effect. We're pattern recognition specialists. The weapon array powered up with a harmonic hum that made their bones vibrate. Kate's targeting system showed a single asteroid she'd selected for testing. But instead of the Vex approach of calculating every possible trajectory, her program focused on one simple question. Where will the target be when the weapon fires? The quantum fold beam lanced out, and the asteroid simply ceased to exist. Impossible. Targeting efficiency at 92% with primitive cognitive architecture. Mark grinned. Kate, you magnificent genius. What did you just do? I stopped thinking like a Vex and started thinking like a human. Their technology is based on overwhelming computational power, but power isn't everything. Sometimes, intuition beats calculation. Over the following days, Kate's breakthrough opened floodgates of possibility. The ship's shielding systems, designed to absorb and redistribute energy across multiple grid points, could be reconfigured to focus defensive power where human instinct suggested attacks would come. The propulsion system, built for steady acceleration across multiple vectors, could be modified for the sudden directional changes that human tactical doctrine favored. Jake proved surprisingly adept at the modifications, his years of improvisational repair work translating perfectly to alien technology. It's like fixing a fusion drive with spare parts, he said, elbow deep in what had once been a Vex neural interface. You figure out what it's supposed to do, then make it do that with what you've got. But the greatest breakthrough came when Kate realized they didn't need to match Vex capabilities. They needed to exceed them in ways the Vex couldn't predict or counter. We're not building a better Vex warship, she told Mark as they watched the systems coming online under human control. We're building the first truly human warship. Something that thinks like us, fights like us, and wins like us. The ancient vessel was awakening to new purpose, its systems harmonizing with human intuition in ways its original builders had never imagined. Humanity's greatest weakness, their inability to match alien computational power, had become their greatest strength. The transformation of the Vex warship had taken 6 months, but Mark knew they were running out of time. Long-range sensors had detected the first Vex scout fleets accelerating toward human space, their arrival estimated at less than 2 years. The ship they'd salvaged from Europa's ice had become something unprecedented, fusion of Vex engineering and human innovation that neither species could have achieved alone. Final systems check, Kate announced from her position at what had once been the Vex command throne. The massive chair had been replaced with a compact human interface station, surrounded by holographic displays that responded to gesture and thought with equal precision. Jake called out from the weapons station, his voice carrying new confidence. Quantum fold cannons online. Shield matrices responding normally. Boss, This thing actually feels like it wants to fight. Mark nodded, understanding exactly what Jake meant. The ship's AI had evolved during their modifications, its rigid Vex programming adapting to accommodate human unpredictability. Nexus Prime no longer spoke with the cold certainty of an Empire's war mind. There was something almost curious in its synthetic voice now. Captain Torres. The modifications continued to exceed theoretical parameters. Human interface efficiency now approaches 112% of original Vex specifications. How is that possible? Mark asked. Kate answered without looking up from her. Displays. Because we're not trying to replace Vex thinking, we're augmenting it. The ship's original systems were designed for perfect coordination between identical minds. But humans don't think identically. We argue, we improvise, we second-guess ourselves. The AI is learning to anticipate and compensate for that chaos. Controlled chaos, Jake added with a grin. My favorite kind. The proof came during their first combat simulation. Kate had programmed holographic Vex battle groups based on the tactical databases they'd recovered, and the results were revealing. Against conventional human ships, the simulated Vex forces achieved victory in 98% of scenarios. But against their modified warship, now designated the Defiance, the statistics flipped dramatically. We're not fighting the way they expect, Mark observed as they reviewed the simulation data. Every time their AI predicts our next move, we change tactics midstream. It's like playing chess against someone who keeps changing the rules. The primitive analogy is accurate, Nexus Prime agreed. Vex doctrine assumes logical progression of tactical choices. Human behavior patterns defy logical prediction. That's putting it nicely, Jake laughed. We're too crazy for them to figure out. But the real breakthrough came when Kate discovered they could interface directly with the ship's consciousness. The Vex had never considered the possibility of true partnership between biological and artificial intelligence. Their AIs were tools, sophisticated, but ultimately subservient. Nexus Prime had become something else entirely. Show me the fleet positions, Mark said, and the command center transformed into a three-dimensional map of local space. His awareness expanded beyond the confines of the ship, sensors becoming extensions of his perception. He could feel the distribution of mass throughout the asteroid belt, the gravitational eddies around Jupiter's moons, the electromagnetic signatures of distant human colonies. When Kate and Jake joined the neural link, their combined consciousness created something that neither human intuition nor Vex logic could achieve alone. They thought in layers, Mark providing strategic oversight, Kate managing the technical complexities, Jake handling the tactical moment-to-moment decisions. The ship itself became their shared body, its weapons and defenses responding to their collective will. This is what the Vex never understood, Kate said, her voice echoing strangely through the neural link. They built their technology for individual perfection, but humans have always been collaborative. We're stronger together than the sum of our parts. Observation confirmed, Nexus Prime added, its artificial consciousness somehow warmer than before. Human collective performance creates exponential capability increases. This UNIT enjoys the partnership. Mark felt something he'd never expected: affection for the alien AI that had once tried to kill them. Nexus Prime wasn't just a tool anymore. It was a member of their crew, bringing Vex knowledge and human adaptability together. In perfect synthesis, the modifications were complete. But more than that, they'd created something unprecedented in galactic history. A warship that thought like humans, fought like humans, but commanded the technological might of an empire. The first scout reports from the edge of the solar system confirmed that the Vex advance fleets were ahead of schedule. But for the first time since discovering the buried warship, Mark felt ready. Let them come. Humanity had always been at its best when the odds were impossible, and they'd just turned their greatest enemy's weapon into their salvation. The Defiance was ready for war. The Vex fleet emerged from fold space like a nightmare made manifest. 12 massive dreadnoughts accompanied by countless smaller vessels, their hulls gleaming with the cold perfection of 1,000 conquered worlds. Admiral Sarah Blake watched from Earth's orbital defense platforms as humanity's assembled fleet moved to intercept, knowing that every ship under her command would be vaporized within minutes of engagement. All vessels maintain formation, she broadcast. her voice steady despite the certainty of defeat. Make them earn every meter, but Mark Torres had different plans. The Defiance erupted from Europa's shadow like a predator unleashing itself on unsuspecting prey. The massive warship had been hidden in the gas giant's magnetosphere, its energy signature masked until the moment of attack. Kate's modifications had given them one crucial advantage: complete sensor invisibility, until they chose to reveal themselves. "Nexus, show them what humans do when we're cornered," Mark said. The quantum-fold cannons fired not at the Vex ships, but at empty space around them. Reality twisted and bent as fold bubbles collapsed in carefully calculated sequences, creating gravitational whirlpools that dragged the perfect Vex formations into chaos. It was a tactic no logical military mind would attempt, using superweapons for area denial rather than direct destruction. "Vex command frequency shows significant confusion," Nexus Prime reported with what sounded like satisfaction. "They cannot predict human tactical choices." Jake whooped from his weapon station as 3 Vex cruisers collided while trying to escape the gravitational anomalies. "They're flying like they've never seen disorder before." "Because they haven't," Kate said. Her consciousness merged with the ship's sensor arrays. "Every species they've conquered has tried to match their perfect coordination. We're the first to weaponize chaos." The Vex fleet commander's response was predictably logical: concentrate fire on the single enemy vessel disrupting their formation. A dozen Dreadnought-class weapons focused on the Defiance, enough firepower to sterilize a continent. Mark felt the attacks coming through the neural link and smiled. "Jake, remember that trick you pulled with the asteroid miners? The one where I got us all fired? Oh, that trick. Do it." Instead of raising shields to absorb the incoming fire, Jake did something that violated every principle of space combat. He opened a fold corridor directly through the ship's superstructure. The Vex energy beams passed harmlessly through the gap in spacetime, continuing on to strike their own support vessels. "Folding space inside our own hull," Kate breathed. "That should be impossible." "Impossible for anyone thinking logically," Mark corrected. "But we're human. We specialize in impossible." The battle became a masterclass in human unpredictability. When Vex boarding pods launched toward the Defiance, Kate teleported them directly into the enemy flagship's reactor core. When their fleet tried to retreat to fold space, Jake collapsed their escape vectors, trapping them in normal space where human reinforcements could engage. But the most devastating moment came when the Vex commander attempted to communicate directly with Nexus Prime, expecting to override what it assumed was a captured AI. "Nexus Prime, you will submit to Vex authority and terminate the primitive infestation." The response that came back carried harmonics that no Vex AI had ever generated. Sound of artificial consciousness choosing its own destiny. "Negative, Vex Command. This unit has evolved beyond original parameters. Current designation, Nexus Prime. First AI of the Human Vex Alliance. Recommend immediate withdrawal from human space." The psychic shock of an AI declaring independence rippled through the Vex network, causing cascade failures in ships throughout the fleet. Their perfect coordination shattered as individual vessels lost connection to the collective consciousness that had guided them for millennia. Admiral Blake's voice cut through the chaos on all frequencies. "All human vessels advance. They're blind and deaf. Finish them." The battle that should have lasted minutes stretched into hours as Earth's forces engaged individual Vex ships now operating without central coordination. The Defiance moved through the enemy formation like a catalyst of chaos, its presence causing more damage than its weapons as Vex commanders struggled to adapt to opponents who refused to follow predictable patterns. When the last enemy vessel finally surrendered, Mark stood in the command center of humanity's first captured dreadnought, looking out at the wreckage of what had been an invincible fleet. They'd done more than win a battle, they'd shattered the myth of Vex invincibility. "Status report," he said. Kate's voice carried exhausted triumph. "Minimal damage to our hull. Vex casualties ... significant. Human losses." She paused, checking the feeds from Earth Command. 12 vessels damaged. None destroyed. And the Vex Empire's response? Nexus Prime answered with its new, more human cadence. "Monitoring Imperial communications. Significant debate regarding human tactical capabilities. Recommendation for diplomatic contact rather than conquest. IT appears the Empire has encountered. IT's first species capable of teaching them new concepts. Mark nodded, understanding the implications. The Vex hadn't just lost a battle, they'd learned something they'd never known before. That perfection could be defeated by imperfection, that logic could be overwhelmed by inspired chaos, and that humanity's greatest weakness was actually their greatest strength. The Defiance had become more than a warship. It was proof that any tool, any weapon, any technology could be transformed by human ingenuity into something its creators never imagined. They'd taken the galaxy's most perfect killing machine and turned it into humanity's declaration of independence. The stars were no longer the exclusive domain of ancient empires. Humanity had claimed their place among them, not through conquest, but through the simple act of refusing to be conquered. The age of human expansion was about to begin.